some organizations are going to have significant emissions drivers that are really hampering their ability to achieve the kind of sustainability that they want to achieve. So by understanding the bigger picture and what's actually available and appropriate to that client, then you can start to show how those savings can then free up budget to then start to then be implemented in other areas.
Hello and welcome to Navigating ESG in Facilities in the Workplace. My name is Darren Pardy and I'm delighted to be joined by Alan Stenson, who is the CEO at Neutral Carbon Zone. Alan, thanks very much for joining me. How are you today?
Absolute pleasure to be here. Yeah, great. Very good. Thank you.
Good to be with you today. Thank you for joining. Alan, you are the CEO of Neutral Carbon Zone. How did that happen? Where did you start with that? How did you get into sustainability, if you don't mind me asking?
So you'd have to roll all the way back to 2006. So I'm now coming into my 17th year in sustainability, and it really came about because I wanted to provide something that was different, where you're looking at providing products and services to a client. If you can do that in an environmentally responsible and ethical way, then that was very much what my priority was. And then forgive the horrific pun, it organically grew from there because people were starting to see that actually, if we're sourcing products and services in a responsible manner, that's great. But what can we do ourselves? How can you turn that into what we do as an organization? And that's really where it started to take off. But I can be very honest and say that back in 2006, going green was definitely a tough sell. I'm sure you can probably guess some of the responses that we get when we'd asked to speak to people about their carbon footprint.
Yeah.
And it's been a roller coaster, but we've been able to work with a lot of very early adopters. We've been able to help them create pioneering new programs that have helped, at least in some way, shape areas of the market. So it's been a real journey when starting back in 2006, when carbon management really wasn't necessarily a thing, and it certainly wasn't in the voluntary sector. So that's been how we've been able to really drill down into what's actually required. So when people are looking to establish something credible, something that's actually going to genuinely deliver change, we've always had to go into the detail, and we've had to really assist the client to find out what specifically they could be doing, what's appropriate for them, and put that together in a way that's commercially viable.
Yeah. I remember in 2008 when I was involved in a kind of sustainable logistics project. Back then, the kind of view on environmentally friendly, green services is that actually there was a premium associated to those services, and I don't think you think necessarily that way much anymore. And obviously it's changed over the years. But before we get into that, got 5 quick fire questions.
Okay.
About you. Favorite film?
The Shawshank Redemption.
Good choice. Favorite song?
I actually really like Free Falling by John Mayer at the moment.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. No judgment. It's very easy to get into.
Justin Bieber or something? I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. There we are. Favorite band or artist?
The Beatles.
Good choice. Favorite place to go in the world? Could be anywhere in the world, even local.
Venice.
Very nice. And do you like pineapple on your pizza?
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
There we are. Okay, never mind.
No judgment.
no judgment, but just a facial reaction. So how has sustainability in your eyes kind of changed over the years?
It's almost unrecognizable. I mean, like I said, 17 years, never mind 17 years, it's the 17 months it's changed massively. I mean, we've seen practically a full 180-degree turnaround when it comes to the level of priority that people are applying to sustainability. Now, people are realizing that this is it's a hygiene aspect. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. And without it, organizations are missing out on tenders, or in some cases not even able to submit an interest to tender because they just haven't got the relevant ESG credentials in place. The level of expectation being applied to go into the specifics, so it's gone beyond a certificate to say, look how good we are. It's the specifics involved in the actual cost of doing business. So people know what the price is, but what's the actual environmental cost specifically related to the products and services that you're providing? And that's
Yeah.
the kind of detail that people are asking for. But we're seeing that. I mean, there was a recent KPMG survey that showed that a fifth of UK workers have at some point turned down a job offer because they didn't feel that the ESG credentials of the business were strong enough. And
Mm.
if you flip that round, there's actually, I think it's 55% of, certainly within the 25 to 34 age group, cited that strong ESG commitments were a reason to want to work for an organization. So it's definitely changing.
Mm.
The the level of interest, priority has just significantly increased. And I think probably where you look at COP26 being hosted here in the UK, that really certainly helped
Yeah.
in the sense that it brought it to the mainstream. So people were certainly a lot more aware of what can happen, what they should be doing, timeframes. Also, COVID, as horrific as that was, it actually is estimated that emissions dropped by 5.8% over that time frame. And people,
Wow.
it doesn't sound like an awful lot, but it's actually the equivalent of the whole emissions of the European Union. So it's a
Right.
significant reduction in global
Yeah.
greenhouse gas emissions. It'd just be nice to achieve those sort of reductions without the assistance of a pandemic this time. But
Indeed.
um, it at least showed people that change and reductions can be achieved. This isn't just a pie in the sky. Like if we do things more efficiently, it could be better. They can see that change can actually happen. So um, my message at the moment is that it's not too late and it can be done, but we definitely have to take action now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. You mentioned the word tenders. So there's an interest for companies to really buy into sustainability because of the winning of work, the bringing in of revenue. You've also mentioned staff. The attracting of talent, bringing in good staff that do have other options and do look at organisations' ESG strategies. And then I suppose you've also got just the senior leadership team and their own ethics and morals and wanting to really push that. Do you think it's with some companies? I imagine it's a combination, but do you ever experience companies where it's more kind of led towards the winning of work or more to attracting talent?
Yeah, I mean, I would say certainly in years past, absolutely. If we were talking to someone about looking at increasing their level of sustainability a number of years ago, you'd almost always have to ensure that that was being driven from a commercial perspective, so that if they could reduce emissions, they could therefore reduce cost and become more commercially viable. Also to win new business so that they can use it as a differentiator. That's kind of that differentiator element has certainly continued. However, now the shift that we're seeing is that there's because that expectation is so high, of course, all organizations that are tendering for work need to be demonstrating that they can show that they're taking credible steps towards reducing their environmental impact. But now it's got to the point where they need to show that they're in control of their environmental impact, but also what kind of assistance will they give the client in achieving their net zero goals and aspirations. So it's
Yeah,
really it's increasing that level of collaboration, working rather than as a supplier, as a partner, so that you're cementing that relationship. And I think, of
yeah,
course, it's of benefit to win business. And we're seeing within tenders the percentage being awarded for sustainability
mm,
is really high now,
yeah,
so much more than it ever was before. So yes, people are going to look at it as to how can I be competitive, how can I drive that value, but we're we're seeing more uh, companies wanting to actually do that because they want to. It's part that
yeah,
they've kind of integrated it into their operations. They've integrated it into their company, so it becomes part of the fabric of who they are.
yeah. It's a
And that's
culture thing, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And that's where success. That's where it needs to go, and that's where we're seeing success being achieved. Um, in the best possible way, because it's not sort of a tick box exercise. In fact,
Yeah,
one of the hashtags that we have on any sort of post that we put is not just a tick box,
yeah,
because if you're doing it for those reasons, to a certain degree, you're going to be doing something good for the environment. But
Yeah.
the reality is, in the environment that we're now in, if you're doing it for those reasons, that will very very quickly become not enough.
Yeah.
It's if you're ticking the box to look good and raise your profile,
Mm.
that will you might as well chuck that certificate in the bin as soon as the client then asks for the specifics. So,
Yeah,
based
absolutely.
on the business that we have, what's the impact on us to
Yeah.
commission you for that work? If you can't answer those questions, then it doesn't matter how shiny the certificate is. It's not enough.
Okay, and yeah, I agree. I think it becomes apparent, it becomes obvious if you're doing it for the wrong reasons. I think your
Absolutely.
clients and your staff will be able to quickly figure out that you're not doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Um, so, how does your company help FM organisations and the workplace with improving sustainability and helping local communities?
So it's really about, I mean, we break it down into phases. So it's really about making sure that the organization in question can firstly understand where they are, so we can baseline their emissions, so that them as an organization and the kind of nucleus of the company, they can understand what their impact is. And then by doing such, and you don't just know what your footprint is, you know where it's coming from and what you could be then doing to target and have a strategic approach to finding those reductions, becoming more sustainable, and so on. And then, particularly within FM, there's a lot of service providers, for instance. So the impact of the products or services that they provide the client on their sites
Yeah,
is significantly more than their own footprint. So when you look at the operational side of things, it's about establishing an integrated program for them to be able to deliver that service to the client, but not negatively impact on that client.
yeah,
Because it's always important to remember that the products or services that you're providing are actually your client's scope 3 emissions because they've commissioned it to happen.
yeah,
So, and it's a difficult scenario because that client has no financial or operational control over those products or services. That's your bit. So if
yeah.
you then become the supply partner that's actually providing that, but actually providing the information that they need, that's
Mm,
really critical to their wider scope 3 emissions, then suddenly you become incredibly valuable because
mm,
that's a part of the process that they can't get without you.
yeah,
So by integrating it in, you're improving your own sustainability, you're making yourself more attractive as a supply partner, more valuable, but you're also then really assisting the client. And then that filters out, so that ripple effect of emissions could be 100 times your own carbon footprint.
yeah,
Um, so by not ignoring that and by helping and collaborating and engaging and therefore potentially influencing, you can have a much bigger impact overall to reduce emissions across the board.
yeah,
And that's what it's going to take. We're in an industry where the impact and the reach that facilities management has is significant. I mean, I did a thought leadership piece for World FM Day last year, and I identified the fact that unlike a lot of other industries, the facilities management industry has and can have a positive impact on all 17 of the United Nations Sustainable
mm,
Development Goals, and
yeah,
that's rare, but it's also fantastic. It's one of the reasons why we've focused so much on facilities management because the reach is huge. If you think about the built environment, for instance, something that we all feed into, that's responsible for around 39% of all global greenhouse gas emissions. So if we can, as a sector, collectively work to reduce that impact, we can quite literally change the world because we have such a positive impact on the bigger picture.
yeah.
So it's something that really is inspiring because it means that there's an opportunity there, and we can really genuinely make a big difference if we work together and we collaborate and find new innovations and new technologies that can actually drive that kind of change.
And I think people and organisations are really buying into the fact that we can change it, and there is a problem.
Yeah.
But without,
Recently, the World Economic Forum, the 2023 Global Risks Report, it was really interesting because out of the top 10 risks that we now face over the next 10 years, 6 of them are climate change related.
right,
Um, and failure to mitigate climate change is the number one risk, the most severe threat our world faces. But from a global perspective, it's actually the one that we're most unprepared for.
mm,
So it's really important now to take that kind of action, but collaborate where we can actually drive genuine change
mm,
and find that impact that we need. And we can do that, within our industry. We've got the ability to really positively contribute, and make a huge difference. And
Mm.
that's, you know, I say it's an opportunity. It's also a responsibility, because we need to make that change. And if we do take that action, then we genuinely will uh, make a difference.
Definitely. And you mentioned technology a minute ago. What innovations are out there at the moment that right now that are making a big impact on sustainability?
So, there's a number of things. I mean, we're quite fortunate in the sense that we create a approved supplier partner program. So, where we're working with an organisation who is wanting to reduce their environmental impact, and if they're providing a product or a service that's of genuine benefit, that's going to help um, other clients to reduce their footprint, then naturally we like to put them together. So,
Yeah.
organisations where, for instance, the supply of products. There's fully Soap2O, one of our clients. I'm sure they won't mind me dropping their name in. Fully soluble, no plastics in their packaging.
Yeah.
It's a non-mixed hand soap. So when that hand soap, just from a basic perspective, if you're transporting those consumables and they're all pre-mixed and it's on a massive pallet and it's incredibly heavy,
Yeah.
um, and because of the nature of that, and there's only so much you can fit on that pallet, then those deliveries are going to be happening quite frequently, and they're going to be heavily emitting into the environment. Whereas if you've got non-mixed,
Mm.
no plastic packaging, very small, you can actually change the order profile so that
Yeah.
you're actually significantly reducing those transportation and distribution emissions.
Mm.
Another client of ours is actually monitoring the purchasing profiles and delivery profiles of their clients, so that they can then respond to the client to say, well, actually, if you made this, and this change, this would be the difference in your environmental impact. So it's about educating people so that they can see that they can make a few changes that are
Mm.
potentially going to provide commercial, social, and environmental benefit based on
Yeah.
those decisions. Technology wise, we've got a technology partner who is creating phenomenal ability with monitoring and sensor technology. So where you can then enable organizations to have much more of a demand based service. So rather than sort of standard frequencies, something happens every Tuesday or every Thursday or 5 days a week or whatever it is, just
Yeah.
because that's the way that's the way the frequency's always been set up. It might be that that's totally above what's required,
Mhm.
and so demand-based management technology, so that HV systems and cooling systems and heating can all talk to each other and be
Yeah.
centrally controlled, so that you're increasing the level of efficiency. There's so many things happening, and it's the companies that are providing that technology and that level of innovation that are really going to thrive, because it's the closer we get to these target years, the more difficult it's going to become. And certainly there's certain things that people want to do now, but the infrastructure is not quite there yet, or doesn't
Yeah.
really fit and isn't necessarily appropriate for them. So the more that opens out and captures and provides benefit to more organizations, the faster we're going to get there. So it's
Yeah.
really important that we really push the boundary and innovate as much as possible, and then work out ways that we can actually benefit everyone involved in the scenario.
Mm. Alan, a lot of what you just said though is it's fantastic, but it's so easy to implement, so simple as well. Like the idea of transporting products that actually, like for example, the soap idea. Obviously, the transportation costs and the carbon emissions are going to be so much lower by not being pre-made. It's just so simple and easy to implement, and the sensors and whatnot. They actually tend to save money in time, don't they? Even though there might be some upfront costs, in time that will more than pay for itself,
Yeah,
and then you
absolutely.
get the sustainability um, benefits as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And by having a structured and targeted approach, it means that you can then start to free up budget for other things. So,
Mhm.
some organizations are going to have significant emissions drivers that are really hampering their ability to achieve the kind of sustainability that they want to achieve. So by understanding the bigger picture and what's actually available and appropriate to that client, then you can start to show how those savings can then free up budget to then start to then be implemented in other areas. So
Yeah.
it's a targeted approach, as opposed to just doing some things that are potentially good, and there's nothing
Mm.
wrong with that, but it could be so much more effective if we do it
Yeah.
in a much more strategic way.
Yeah, absolutely, and I suppose that's where you guys come in. And what big changes do you think will happen within the workplace over the next few years that will again further support sustainability?
I think I think as the level of drive continues, I mean, legislation's certainly capturing more and more organisations than ever before. But one of the biggest drivers is that level of expectation and that requirement for detail. I
Hmm.
think that's going to start to become much more within the corporate ethos,
Hmm.
so that organisations are they're being more influenced by sustainability. So it's infiltrating into all of the organizational, operational, and supply chain aspects, so that it's being considered. And we tend to work on that triple bottom line approach. It's got to work commercially, it's got to work socially, and it's got to work environmentally. Otherwise, it's not truly sustainable.
Yeah.
And that's really important. And I think that it's that decoupling of um, economic growth with greenhouse gas emissions. So we of course we want to grow, be more successful, and thrive. But we want to be able to do that with the lowest possible impact to our environment and the
Mm.
biggest positive impact to everyone that's involved in that scenario. So when people start to see that by actually working together, we can achieve significant things that are genuinely going to benefit everyone, then that's going to continue to gather momentum. But yeah, it's it's on everybody's list now. A few years ago, it was still a nice to have,
Mm.
or that differentiator. Now it's 2023,
Yeah.
and we have to really walk the walk. Um, and taking significant action is the only way it's going to happen. And the closer we get to these target years and requirements, the more the sort of panic, if you like, is going to set in, where people are thinking, well, actually, can we do this in this time frame? Because there's an
Mm.
awful lot to do, and we haven't been doing it. So I think that sort of pushing it to further down the list when it comes to the to do list.
Yeah.
That's definitely going to be catching a lot of people out, because it's something that needs to happen in order for us to secure a livable future. And it's as I said to you before, that the 6 of the top 10 global risks are climate change related. Within the next 10 years, we do have a clock on this, and we
Yeah.
do need to take action. But by taking action, amazing things can happen.
Mm. And with the input of the government with certain targets and those large corporates, these large organizations having an influence on their own supply chains as well, you would have thought that there's a very real chance that we'll do what we need to do.
Yeah.
But Alan, that's been great. Is there anything else you wanted to add at all?
No, I think it's just really to make the message clear that we can do this, and it's as serious as the situation is, and it is. We can take action, and we can generate change, and
Yeah.
that's we need to just see that as an exciting opportunity, to really get down into the detail of where we can drive that change, and what difference it will make.
Yeah.
And people, I think people now are much more aware that it does make good business. If we collaborate with our supply partners, if we assist in the wider picture, if we are aware of the impact of what we're doing,
Yeah.
then we will use that information to influence our decision making. And I think the more we make people aware, the more we empower people to be able to take actions, knowing that those actions are going to generate benefit, then the more it will happen. So I think certainly going to be an exciting few years ahead,
Mm.
and I'm sure there'll be lots and lots to do. But it's an exciting prospect to see us tackle it.
You're absolutely right, and I congratulations on your continued success as well.
Thank
And
you.
I wish you further success in the future. But thank you very much for your time. Really
Pleasure.
appreciate it. Thanks.
Pleasure. Great to be here. Thank you.